Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Liz Walker, and thank you for joining us for another session of our Facebook live stream as we continue our conversation about the healing power of storytelling. You know, this name of this stream session is Searching for Healing and Hope. And tonight we're going to talk about the real healing, and that is the power of filmmaking as a way to process trauma. We have a very special guest tonight who is special for a lot of reasons because she's a filmmaker, but also because she watched us just like you're watching us. And she called and said she wanted to share her story. And that really moves me because it means you're out there and you want to be a part of the conversation. So please welcome tonight Tonia Magras, I hope I got it right, the Chief Operating Officer of Hull Bay Productions, producer, director, writer of Hull Bay's latest project, which is the film Do You Remember Me? It is a story about the devastating trauma of sexual violence when trust turns to betrayal. Thanks so much, Tonia, for joining us this evening. Did I get that name right?
You did. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and just to talk about this important project and in my journey of healing.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get right to it. Do You Remember Me tells the story of your own traumatic experience some 38 years ago, is what I understand. Why did you decide to tell this story now? And then if you could kind of tell us a little bit about the story. Why now? And what's the story about?
I have been on a healing journey through my relationship with God, with my husband for quite some time. I have a tremendous support system through my home church at Abundant Life Church and my family. So this has always been something that people in my life have said, you know, you're ready, you're strong enough, but I never quite felt like I was. And so when I re-entered college in the fall of 2022, I had this amazing professor, Rochelle Dermer, from Fitchburg State University, and she asked us to write what she calls a hero's journey. And I took that to think of, you know, something that could have like just absolutely destroyed you, but you're able to come through it and you're able to see it from the other side, if you will. I was raped by 4 football players when I was 18 years old in college. I was a freshman in college. And I really felt that that part of my life was always going to just stay in 1987. I had written about it, but really for my own kind of edification and just through, I guess, my own therapeutic process, I have written about it, but it was I never thought that I would do this. And so with the help of Rochelle and my senior producer, Haley Finn, and of course, my husband, Greg, we just started the process of saying, like, you know, I think I'm ready to do this. I knew I didn't want to do it as a documentary, which is really my background is documentary film. And this was actually the first narrative film that I've ever produced and directed. But I knew that it wasn't just Tonia's story, that this story is, as we're seeing, as we saw through the whole Me Too movement, as we have seen through the R. Kelly saga, and now we're seeing through the Diddy saga, this is not just Tonia's story. And so it wasn't important for me to make it about me, but it was important for me to say, you know, in a very kind of emphatic way and almost demanding, like, do you remember me? Do you remember what you did to me? And that was really how this all got started.
We have about 30 seconds of the film that we're going to show. And Mike is standing by. I'm going to set up this scene where the security guard takes you to the hospital after the attack. And this scene really touched me because from what I've read and what I've heard, this is a really realistic situation. You go in the hospital for help, but you got to go through all these horrible, what I consider very horrible uh, contexts, horrible situations. So, Micah, if you have that, could you show us that 30 seconds?
Let's add 20 more milligrams of labetalol and 2 milligrams of lorazepam now.
Doctor, I have 2 officers who want to take a statement.
What? Who let them through? You cannot be back here.
Hey, somebody called us all the way down here to report an alleged crime. We need to take a statement.
Not now. This woman needs to be sedated.
Whoa. No sedating until we finish asking our questions, okay?
I don't care about your questions. This woman's going into
You
shock.
said she was assaulted.
She was assaulted.
Then that's all the more reason for us to take her statement now before she's asleep.
You get 2 minutes.
That really got me because I, from what I've heard, that's exactly what happens too often. Can you kind of remember that moment or tell us, looking at that, what you remember, how horrible it was?
Yeah. So, I think what people really don't understand is that when you are taken into an emergency room situation after a sexual assault, what medically has to happen to you is a re-traumatization of what you just went through. They have to take evidence. And now this was back in 1987. And honestly, there's a lot of that I've kind of blocked out just because of the trauma. But I remember the 2 officers treating me as if I was a bother to them. Like, oh, we had to come all the way down here and not taking me seriously. And I didn't know. Remember, I had just come from this life-altering situation with 4 men, and now I'm up against these other 2 men. And the security guard in my film, who's played by Christian Bester, and I don't know if I'll ever see this person again, probably not. But if not for him, I don't know what would have happened to me. He immediately, after understanding and seeing the physical trauma that I had went through, and there was blood and there was bruising and I was screaming and there's just all of this happening, he immediately went into this protective mode. And so I remember when talking to Christian about playing this role, it was important for him to not do the I'm a man, I'm going to take control of the situation and I'm going to save the day, right? But to really understand what Nikki needed in that moment, that she needed help, and she needed help in a way that wasn't going to re-traumatize her. And so he was brilliant in that. And then Jimmy Devlin, and Dave Gambone, who played the officers, I really let them kind of just, go loose with it. I explained what happened, and there were some lines, but they were really able to kind of understand the trauma that needed to happen at that time. It was demoralizing. And when you see the rest of the scene, you'll kind of understand the way they spoke to her, the way they just completely just diminished her experience and almost sided with the football players at the time.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was, and I couldn't function anymore. And it was, I remember leaving, kind of sneaking out, leaving the hospital. And I never returned. I never returned to the school. I never even returned to the city where the school is.
So was this crime then it was reported though, or did you not? When you walked out of the hospital that night, did that end the whole thing?
It ended the whole thing. I never went back. I never called. I never, no. And that, and that's always a very difficult question that I always hear survivors of sexual violence and sexual assault have to answer. Like, well, why didn't you? And no one can really appreciate what someone is going through at that time to be able to make like really definitive decisions about, well, if I do this, then maybe this process will happen. If I do this, this will happen. All I wanted to do, honestly, was just get home to my mom. I went back to my dorm. I grabbed a couple of things and sat on the floor of the airport, just waiting to get back home to my mom.
Even as you speak about this, it's almost like it just happened. I can imagine that in many ways. I know enough about trauma to know that that's exactly how it is sometimes. It's like no time has passed.
Right.
So how is making this film healing for you? I would think it would be very hard.
Oh, I cried on the set every single day of filming. You know, one of the things that I had to tell this amazing crew, which I have to say were all Fitchburg State University students, the best crew I have ever worked with in my
Oh,
years of doing this. Absolutely the best group of individuals I've ever worked with. And I said to them, I said, no matter what happens with me, you all can't stop. I need everything to kind of keep going because I didn't know when it was going to happen. The first day we filmed, I made a very specific decision to film the where the rape took place first. And for the audience, we did not shoot a rape scene. I was adamant about that. And I never feel like there's a need for that, but that's just my opinion as a filmmaker. But I had to shoot that first. And before even lights or anything went up, I walked into a dorm room and I started to work with the crew to position the furniture. And I was there, and I was done. I was done for about 20, 30 minutes. I was done because I realized a couple things. One, I had never been back in a dorm room since that happened, since my rape happened. And to physically be moving furniture to, kind of show how it was, where I was in proximity to the door and everything else was just, it was surreal. And I don't even know if that's a strong enough word to say it, but it was really important that the crew knew that I had my support team. We did hire what's called an intimacy coordinator, who was just amazing. She helped me. I should say they helped me. They helped both Nikki, the present day, and the younger Nikki. And of course, my husband Greg was there with me every single day. And so, and I had my team. I had my team with me.
and that really. Well, I have to ask you, I had just written a book and my book's going to be out soon. And that's why we started even this project. And my book was very healing for me because of some trauma that I experienced as a child. But in the process of doing this, does the healing come just every time you sit on the set, or is it through conversations with your husband, or is it just something so subtle that you'll have to look back and say, that's how I healed?
Honestly, my faith tells me that healing is there. I don't know if I will ever be healed from this because, but what I've learned to do is I've learned to accept this as part of who I am. Because I had buried that person. I drank every day for 30 years. For 30 years, I drank every day because the ability to not feel was that just made life happen. It allowed me to do everything that I needed to do and be successful and be functional, even with the drinking. But when I stopped, which is now 7.5 years ago, that I've been sober, and all the feelings started coming back again. But I think what I was able to do now is to accept it. To
Right.
accept that it was part of who I am. And, I didn't seek out this, as no sexual violent victim or survivor does. And, and I also had to learn how to not hate God. I hated God for a really long time. Like, where was he? Where was
Sure.
he in that? I was years old, maybe 110 pounds soaking wet. And where was he in that? And so that was also part of my healing. And my pastor, Bishop Lawrence Ward, really helped me kind of maneuver that. Because, even when my husband and I decided as a family that we were going to go back to church, I was rough around the edges. I was just like, okay, all right, yes, God, this, amen, whatever. And I really had to accept that, the old question, the $100 million question, why do good things happen? Why do
Right.
bad things happen to good people?
Right. But you
And
know what we try to talk about in our work is that healing is not about getting over something. It's not about forgetting something. We don't even focus on forgiveness, even though that's a Christian way to do. But in our
Right.
trauma program, we say that's yours. But healing is, like you said, it's finding a way through. And you're saying that accepting, this as part of your story, not your whole story, but
Right.
part of your story
Right.
is that. Before you decided to make this movie, though, before you did this for 38 years, had you just put this away? Was it something that was constantly in your head? You said you drank, so that must, the way you did put it away, right?
Right. Yeah. And and there were triggers, obviously. There were many triggers. And my husband's Greg knows me like the back of his hand. And so even just something very simple as watching a movie that may have a very violent scene in it would trigger me. I remember really kind of going into a deep depression after I watched, and I don't know why I watched this movie, and then I'll never watch it again, but Jodie Foster's The Accused.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I went really dark for a while after that. But, it was also kind of understanding that this isn't just my story. And because as most of movie junkies will know, that that movie was based on a true story as well. But it's also just knowing that I'm okay, that I can feel and it can be okay. And I had to stop drinking in order to really, really understand that and live with that.
Of course. You mentioned earlier about not showing the actual rape scene, and you were very intentional about avoiding that. There's so many considerations you have to make in telling this kind of story. I was reading an article that said, you have to decide what to leave out, what to leave in. Do you make that as you go, or do you kind of have a intention before you even start filming? How does that process work, especially for you who went through this? How does the process work?
I think from the very beginning, Greg, myself, Rochelle, Haley, we decided immediately that this was not going to be that kind of movie. And we have to give trust in the audience is smart enough to understand the nuances in films. The things that we just don't have to show. And I know that a lot of filmmakers do. And those aren't movies that I choose to watch or support just for my personal space. But we made a decision right away that wasn't something that we wanted to do, that we needed to do, that it is implied enough in how we put it together that you understand. You absolutely understand. And Annabella Valle, who plays young Nikki in the film, and April Lissette, who plays the present day Nikki. They were just really able to capture, through weeks and weeks of talking and them knowing my story and asking me questions, to be able to deliver the performances that they did, and they blew me away. They absolutely blew me away.
They both blew me away, and from seeing just the little version of your film that I saw, and I thought I thought April was you. I thought you were in your own film. I thought, God, this lady's something. She is the writer, producer, director, and the actor. Oh my gosh. But one of the scenes that really touched me was the scene with your husband in the film. And I wanted your husband, not the actor, but your husband to join us now, Greg Magras. And Micah, if you could bring Greg on. Greg, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear us? Micah, I don't know. Greg, are you there? So maybe we've lost the audio with Greg. Can you, I don't know if you can hear us, Greg. We're going to come back back in, because I wanted to talk about that scene. But how did you pick why not you? Well, I can imagine why not you, but how did you pick the actors in your film? Did you know April already?
No. So I knew Annabella because we go to school together. We call it AB for short. And we did just a regular casting call. And the interesting thing about April is, first, we both have the short haircut. So that was the first thing, right? And when we did the kind of like the actors reading with each other, and this was during the callbacks, and the chemistry that her and Mark Souza had just in that rehearsal, in that not rehearsal, audition.
Yeah.
It was like Greg and I like looked at each other. We were like, oh my gosh, that's us. And she did this one thing that I do, and no one would ever know this, but my husband would say something to me, and I would just say sarcastic, I'd go, and she did that. And we were just like, are you kidding me with this?
We call it a God moment. There was a God moment. Well, we're going to bring her out. I think she's with us. So, Micah, can we there she is, April. I recognize I saw you in the movie. How are you?
And we're literally wearing the same thing. That's what's so funny. So funny.
Thank you so much for joining us. We were just talking about you. I kind of cut you off there, Tonia. You were telling me something about when you first met April. Did you want to continue, or had you?
Yeah. So when we did that second audition, and her and Mark and their chemistry and the care that it felt like Mark was having for her, without being like, hey, I'm husband, hear me roar type of thing. And it was so organic. And Greg and I were like, well, and I remember afterwards, I don't know if you remember this, April, but when you were done, because you needed a minute, because it's heavy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so you walked out of the audition room, and I came running after you, and I was just like, girl.
You did this. Really.
I don't know if you've been stalking me or looking through my window, but yeah.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, April, because you did an amazing job. Now, I'm saying this having only seen a few minutes of this film, but I'm hooked. But it had to be, or was it very difficult to do a film about not only such an intense story and a painful story, but the person who experienced it is right there directing you. How was it like for you to be in this kind of, to have this kind of experience?
It was hard. It was very difficult because I've also had my own experiences. And so when I saw the notice come up, I was very hesitant at first because I wasn't sure if I was going to bring up anything of my own experience, and I didn't want to do that based on, this is somebody else's experience, and I don't want to taint that with my own. But also, after a while, reading through everything, going back to the website, reading Tonia's story, and reading the sides that we had to read. I read them over and over and over again. And I finally came to this conclusion that I have to do this. I have to do this not only for my own healing, but I need to do this because we need to stand up for one another. Women
Absolutely.
need to stand up for one another, especially after the Me Too movement. And we actually had a conversation at my second audition. After, yeah, well, I guess the first live audition over Zoom, and we had a kind of a conversation afterwards, and the importance of this film. And after hearing a little bit of what Tonia had to say, and we also talked about, is there going to be a rape scene? Um,
Mhm.
and I loved the response that Tonia gave me. She said, "No, we're not going to do that. The story is enough without involving that scene in there." And so I was like, okay, I know this is going to be hard, but I think that really helped me confirm that this is what I need to do. I need to do this. However I need to get this role, get this part, I have to do it. I have to.
What would you both, and this will be a question to you. Now, we're going to get Greg to come join you, Tonia, so he'll sit with you in just a few seconds, and I'll ask him a question as well, or two or three. But the time that we're in right now, we kind of went through this Me Too time, but like you said, Tonia, these cases are everywhere. I mean, it's the Diddy case is just, and I'm always riveted by this poor woman who broke that case open, because we saw the video in a hotel, and I'm not going to get into the details of it.
Sure.
But this is a big movie star, big singing star, and she's beautiful. Yet you watch her in this hallway, and I cried because she looks so vulnerable, and so to me, we should have worked this stuff out, but we're still. Why is this such? Why is it this way? Are we living in a world where people hate women? I just don't understand. How do you look at the times we're in and the women who are in public? I guess I'm asking 50 questions, aren't I? But it's just an emotional thing for me. We seem to be in such a rough time for women right now, in situations that I thought would have been worked out by now. Do you understand? Does that make any sense to either of you?
I mean, I think in some of the research, and I didn't dive too far into it, but it's still very much unreported, underreported, and unreported, right? In my case, I think that, and I wouldn't say it's so much that there's this hatred towards women, because we also know in the LGBTQ plus community that rape is a huge issue there. But I think that as long as we continue to treat sexual violent survivors or victims as for me, it was just like, oh, you're tainted now, and there's the physical, there's actually, the healing, the physical healing of my body took months, if
Mm.
maybe not a year. It took a very long time. And then of course the mental and emotional, I'm still dealing with it. So I don't know if there's an answer. April's smarter than I am. I don't know
I highly
what the
doubt that.
answer is.
It's one of
You
those
know?
that has no answer. But I mean,
Yeah.
doing what you're doing, April, and doing what you're doing, Tonia, is exactly what has to happen, don't you think? The telling
Absolutely.
of stories.
Yes. Yeah.
April,
And we need, and we need to keep talking about it. I think that's the other thing too, is I think in our society, our women are taught, and I actually went through kind of a similar situation in 2023. Not sexual trauma or any kind of sexual violence, but experiencing the misogyny that's still very, 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 very much there. And women are taught, like, yes, you got to be strong, but you can only go so far. You need to speak up, but you need to do it in a certain way that doesn't make it seem like you're being uh, uh, mean or you know what I mean? Like you have to do it in a nice way. You need to be nice when you do certain things.
Mhm.
I think that's just something that we're so caught up in, and we forget about. Let's not go backwards. We need to move forwards. I think that is kind of the phrase these days with the times that we're in right now is we're going so backwards, and we are going so backwards now, you know, to where women have no rights again. And how is that possible? How is that possible? So the thing that's scary to me is that now that we're here and we're letting off some people, right? We're letting them go without any kind of consequence, right? It's giving the younger generation, these younger kids, the idea that it's okay, males especially, it's okay for me to treat women this way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That's a
the
problem.
makes me so sad as an older woman, as an elder, is that this is the same kind of thing. Sexism, racism, all these issues that are up now. We've been dealing with this forever. My son has to say, "Calm down, mom," because you know it's the arc of the universe goes through justice, but nobody said it was going to be easy or quick. This could take generations and generations to correct the
Hmm.
misogyny and the racism and the different things that we're facing. And the sexual violence is certainly a symbol of that. You both are very courageous and wonderful women. Is Greg near you, Tonia? Has he showed up?
Right on it.
Hi, good
Hi.
evening.
We were having some technical problems with this
No
stream.
audio.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you pushed through because another scene that was really, again, moving to me was the scene that Nikki in the movie is having a horrible time because she's just been connected with the person who assaulted her. And so she's in the kitchen and she's just, you walk in, your character, you're not in the film, but a wonderful man who plays you walks in. And immediately the line that he says is when he sees how distraught she is, he says, "What do you need right now? What do you need right now?" And that just struck me because I thought, is that real? Do people actually act like that? That's not what happened in my marriage. So that's why I'm not married. That was such a beautiful line. So my question to you, Greg, first is that something you had to learn in your relationship, or was that's just who you are?
Well, relationship in general just takes work. Developing communication, especially with a spouse, takes time, and the more deeper the conversations are, the more I'm able to relate to her. I'm able to see her expressions, feel her expressions. I'm able to see her movements. I'm able to kind of adjust, kind of think what she's thinking in a way where I could address the situation in the most loving way. And that's my goal as a husband, is to be there for her in
Right.
whatever way it takes or needs.
Yeah,
Well,
and when we were filming that scene, and you know the way that Mark delivered that line, because remind me, April, did we only do one take of that? No, we did a couple, right?
I
But
think
he
we
kept,
did 3 or 4.
yeah, but he kept delivering it the same exact way. And, you know, and I think when you're talking about like trauma and, you know, dealing with trauma in relationships and how you really have to know, as Greg said, you got to know how and when and where to to bring that care into it, because sometimes, and he'll tell you, I just want to be left alone, you
Yeah.
know, as
sure.
does he. You know,
Yeah.
we both have trauma in our lives that we had coming into this relationship.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of know when and where. And I think that
Yeah.
our love language has really kind of developed in a way that we're
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
That really comes through in the film. And again, I just watched this and I was blown away by the gentleness of the character who plays you, Greg. So I love
Yeah.
your character in the film and I can't wait to see it all. April, what would you say you need, as a person who's been traumatized, and you don't have to give us the specifics, but you did
Sure.
say you'd had your own experience. So what do you need from your partner or your friends? How can we best give you what you need as you go through your own healing
Yeah.
or whatever?
I mean, I think, and I was married and I don't have a partner currently, but I have amazing friends that surround me. And I think that is one of the most important things if anybody has or is going through this. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that you trust
Mhm.
fully, family that is there for you. And for me personally, I know when I go through a depressive state, which I did this last year for a few months, it was very difficult. Um, with stuff that I experienced in 2023 with this whole thing with misogyny, but also uh, I won't get into that. But also when you go into a depressive state, then things start coming up. So things started kind of coming up for me,
Sure.
and I become very reclusive. And I have a couple of really good friends that know. They know when I don't answer my phone for a couple days and they've been calling me, I will get a call and a text messages and voice message saying, "Hey, I'm worried about you. You need to just let me know that you're okay." A message or anything. They're not asking for specifics.
Mm-hmm.
They're not asking for anything, just something, a word to let them know that I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I do that, they're like, "Okay, well, I'm here if you need me." And that's all it is. That is all it takes for me. And then when I'm ready to talk, and I have a hard time, I have a hard time asking for help. I'm working on it. I'm really working on it, but it's something that's very, very difficult for me to do. So when I know that I have these wonderful friends surrounding me, I know I'm okay.
I have a hard time asking for help. So I know exactly. I don't know what you've been through, but I know that hesitancy to,
Yeah.
to somebody to. But the whole idea of just having somebody to say how you doing or just check in
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
it's a simple thing, and you would think, well, that everybody does that, but we
They
don't do it.
don't.
No,
No.
we don't do it enough. What was and this is a question for all three of you, what was the biggest learning or biggest surprise, or were there any in this process of making this film in your role? Did anything happen in filmmaking or in the story that you weren't expecting?
I'll-
Yes.
April go first.
There were some really, really hard scenes that I was just like, am I gonna be able to do this? Um, I was really worried how deep I was gonna go. And if I was gonna go deep, am I gonna be able to get out of it? And I was kind of surprised. And I think this is also a testament to our amazing intimacy coordinator, Bobby. They were incredible. And anytime we went through a really, really tough scene, the moment we were done, there was a couple times where Tanya was like, get out, everybody out." And she would just bring in the computer because there was a day that Bobby couldn't be there. And they were right there with me, just talking me down. And I was surprised at how quickly I was able to come out of it and be okay. I don't know if I would have been able to do that with just Tanya, because Tanya helped me too in a very tough scene in the bedroom. But I think with both Tanya and Bobby there, oh my gosh, I felt so good afterwards, after a while, you know what I mean? And that kind of shocked me a little bit. That shocked me a little bit.
You said that you have an intimacy. What's the term for this person who you hired?
Intimacy coordinator. And I know a lot of filmmakers are using intimacy coordinators. Of course, then there's some who aren't, and we're seeing how that's playing out legally right now in some cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was very important for Greg and I to protect both April and AB in this, as well as Kim, who played Dale, who is the person responsible for how the rape happened. Um, because it's easy as just snapping out of it. I am not an actor. And I don't play one on TV, but it was really important, and I felt very protective of April and AB during this. I think we both did,
Yeah.
you know, and even for me, I sometimes had to put myself aside just to make sure that they were okay, because they're telling my story, and my story is really hard.
And it wasn't just about, it was about everybody also, because we don't know anybody background, deep background. They may have experienced some type of trauma, and it may have triggered them. So we had to be there as a whole for everyone. So the intimacy coordinator played a very
Yeah,
huge
Bobby
role in that.
was
We want to make
fantastic.
sure everybody was protected,
Mhm.
emotionally.
That's
Yeah.
the most amazing or surprising thing about trauma, learning about trauma for me, is that you carry stuff that you don't even know you're carrying. From years ago, 38 years, from a lifetime ago, you think it's all resolved and then it explodes. So it's a pretty serious thing. And I love the idea that you guys were taking care of your crew and your staff and your actors so intimately, I'll say. Any other surprises for you, Greg, in the making of this and watching this and being a part of this production?
Well, here's something that was amazing for me. I was able to watch my wife kind of heal some, you know, with every time she told the story, or with every breakdown she had. The next time it held back just a little bit more so she could get that story out just one more time to help somebody.
Wow. I know it can make me cry, but that's what healing is. And that's when we have to be careful how we define healing, but that's what healing it is. Not curing it, it's not getting over it, but it's how it changes you. You know, this project that you all are doing. So and how about you, Tonia? What was a surprise or learning for you?
I learned that God has made me a lot stronger than I thought I was. I learned that He has surrounded me with people who love me, who care about me, who He has given me this amazing gift of storytelling. And it is our hope that someone will see this and watch it and say, do you remember me? And even just the power of that question is, and I'm not suggesting, and I haven't myself, like, gone to confront anyone or anything about this, but it's just like, in your quiet time, and I don't know what your world is like, Dale, I don't know where you are. I don't know what that is, but do you remember me? And I'm grateful that I have my husband. I'm super grateful for April and AB for believing in this and helping me tell this story. I wouldn't have changed this experience for the world. I really haven't, and it's being, I feel like April and I are part of a sisterhood that we never wanted to be a part of, but we
Yes.
know that we're always going to be in each other's lives as a result of this experience. And that means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah. But the way you're using your wounds and your pain to kind of pay it forward and heal somebody, help someone else heal. I mean,
Yes.
that's the whole God story, right? That's the point. That's what we're supposed to do. We know that storytelling will affect those, and I prophesy that your film is going to affect a lot of people and help a lot of people in their own healing. But have you thought about the specific use of this film? Like, do you want it to have these conversations? How are you just, when you distribute it, it's to everybody, or have you thought about what you want to happen with the film?
I mean, we really, using and shout out to Fitchburg State University, who was just unbelievably supportive in all of this, in helping us get this together. We really want this to be a conversation that maybe starts happening on college campuses. That, you know, young people, young adults don't have to feel as though that there's nothing out there that will help them. I ran away, and I ran away for a long time. It took me 36 years just to step back onto a college campus as a student. And I'm graduating May 17th. Yeah. But that took 36 years for that to happen. And I don't want another Nikki to have 36 years for that. So if we can use this as a way for people to start, you know, having the conversations, if this could even help colleges and universities use this film as a tool to begin these conversations, that's really what our greatest gift is in the reason why we do what we do.
Yeah, and I think one of the important reasons of doing it on the college campus with the college kids is to bring awareness to them. If they could spread that out themselves or change the way they view this from the men and the young ladies' perspective of it. You know, if we could create impact, if we could create this as a learning tool, like my wife said, even if we add this to like a HR department, you know, to bring awareness as that this is real. If we could affect the change from change the mentality of folks, you know, and the way they view things like this, you know, and the seriousness behind of it, and if we could just change that, you know, to make it better, you know, I think we doing our part to make the world a better place through our values and morals.
Well, you are doing your part. Now let's talk about the specifics. You're almost through with the film. So when will it debut? Where will it debut? What are we going to see? Where's the red carpet going to be? And what will I wear?
That's the most important question, and I have to talk to my daughter about that, who's my personal stylist. We are debuting this on the Fitchburg State University campus on Thursday, March 27th. Doors will open at 6 p.m. and we're going to do a nice reception. You know, the other part that kind of organically and almost magically came out of this is that Robin Moore, who has done the original music score for this film, her and Coriana Bradford, who goes to church with us, came up with this amazing almost mantra, like this theme song for it. And I'm not going to give too much away because you got to see the end of the movie to get to it. So that's like another level. It's almost like an anthem, you know, that, you know, through all of this pain and horrible that we went to a recording session. I'm telling you, we were just like boo-hooing, like left and right. But March 27th, Fitchburg State University. And then it will be released to the public on March 28th. But we wanted to give an opportunity to all the amazing students who worked on this. I can't name you all, but Anya and Allie, and of course Haley and Rochelle. And then we have Tony and Nico and Xander and Ollie. Like, there's too many. And
you can name them all. The show
tomorrow on campus if I forgot your name, but Brandon and Zach, they were just amazing. Aiden and
well,
so anyways, but we wanted to give an opportunity to celebrate them. We of course wanted to celebrate this amazing cast: April, Mark Souza, Christian Bester, A.B. Valle, and Cameron Mislowitz. He's going to yell at me because I can.
No, he won't. He won't.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart, and that's the other thing. Like, he's such a sweetheart. But yeah, just to give an opportunity to celebrate them and to celebrate the Fitchburg State community who just supported us through this entire process. A huge shout out to Rochelle Dermer, who is just, she pulled this out of me. She is my advisor. She is my professor. She's my friend. And she's just, she knows I love her. And, but you know, she's the one that, you know, with that little hero's journey assignment, all of this was born.
That's all that happened. That's wonderful. It's stunning. It's spectacular. And I know this is going to be a really successful film, and a film that really does something, like you said, helps make the world better. If I could ask you one thought to leave with, what do you want me to walk away with when I see your film? And this is a question to all of you. Is there any one thing you want me to walk away with, or have you thought about that?
I'll go last.
April.
Wow. So many things I want people to walk away from, but I think the most important thing for me is to say something. If you see something, say something. If you experience something, say something. That's so important, because I didn't say anything. I told my best friend after it happened, and I didn't go to the police. I didn't say anything to my mom for several years. So I think, and that was hard for me to hold that in, because I'm very, very close with my mother. And so to keep that from her was very, very difficult. But that, again, that's the stigma, right? Women don't talk about it because they think, what are people going to think of me after that situation?
Right. Say something. Greg, how about you?
Yeah, I think in our interactions with people, I think we need to show consideration and love to folks, you know, because we don't know what they may be going through. You know, they may have had coming out a situation like that, you know. And if we could show a little compassion and love to folks, you know, we could make the world a better place, you know, a happier place, you know.
Beautiful.
I was just going to say, love is healing, and healing is love, and God is all over that.
Yep.
And, you know, I am healing. I am still in my process. I am healing. But I know that there's love, and there is just amazing support, and
Healing through purpose.
healing through purpose. I like that.
Yeah.
Sounds like the name of your next film. You never know. Thank you so much. You brought a lot of love here, and you brought some healing here. And again, Tonia, I will never forget that you called us and said, I've got a story to share. So thank you for doing that. And I wish you the best. April Lisette, Greg Magras, and Tonia Magras. Thank you for joining us. Hull Bay Productions. And the film is released. It's called Do You Remember Me? And it is released March 20. What's the date? March 28th. And here's a shout out for Fitchburg University. Great place. God bless you all. Thanks for joining me. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Bye. It's on you to turn us off. Bye.
Bye.